Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Bench. I am Rocco Granado from InLacrosseWeTrust.com, and with me, as usual, from WaxPhilly.com, and none other than Gary Grube. Gary, how you doing tonight?
I am good, Rocco. It's good to be back on. We are now into the heart of the playoffs, and now things get interesting.
Yes, and the song kind of says it all, okay? Especially for the Colorado Mammoth. We've talked about this, we've joked about this many a times, about how they can never get over that first round hump, okay? They did it last year by beating Vancouver, but they cannot seem to beat the Calgary Roughnecks. Because right now, since 2006, when the Mammoth last won the Champions Cup, they made the playoffs every year but one. And since then, they are 1-11. They are 0-8 against the Calgary Roughnecks. They are 1-1 against the Vancouver/Washington Stealth. And I believe 0-1 or 0-2 against the Edmonton/Saskatchewan Rush in the playoffs. But this hold that Calgary has on them, it's unbelievable. It really is.
Yeah, it's pretty strange. And they did everything in their power to lose this game.
Yeah.
It's almost like, they went in at halftime going, yeah, we've got this.
Yeah,
Let's change this.
They're up 7-3 at the half.
And in total control of that game.
Right, and then they get outscored 6-2 in the third and 6-3 in the fourth. They get outscored 12-5 in the final 30 minutes, okay? And between the two teams in the first half, they had a combined 10 goals. Calgary alone scored 12 in the second half. I mean, just took it away from them.
They're known for. They're not known for their offense. They're known for their defense.
Right.
Well, where was it? Where was it? It sure as heck didn't come out after the third quarter.
No, it didn't.
It didn't make it to the third or the fourth.
No.
So, here we go. Do they rip this thing apart? Because obviously this is reminding me of the Toronto Raptors here in Toronto. They're ferocious during the season, and like little tiny lambs come to playoffs.
Yeah.
And this happened again, and there's no excuse for it.
Yeah, and it's not the matter of, they played other teams in the West, for play. They're 0-8 against Calgary. They cannot beat. So Calgary's happy finishing in third place. They don't care, because it seems like they know they're going to be Colorado in the first round. They've done that 8 times. I mean,
yeah, and a few of the times they were like 0-8 to start the season. Didn't look like they're going to make the play, and still made it into. That's the thing that gets me.
Yeah.
Now, maybe with more teams, this kind of situation doesn't happen as much, because you'll have to go through more rounds to make it to the semis.
Well, I don't know. They still may just do the top 3 teams next year. I don't know.
Well, at least then they're going to have to earn their way up over a number of teams. But
yeah,
this is ridiculous, really.
Yeah.
Like I said, Colorado had this game in hand, and with the exception of Dobby scoring with 31 seconds left, it was 7-2, and Calgary didn't look like they had a clue. Colorado was doing everything correct. They kept Calgary to the outside. They boxed up Dobie. They boxed up Dixon. They gave Katoni no chance. Like, these guys were barely part of the first half.
Yeah.
And their offense was alive and kicking. The guys who were supposed to score, the Nobles, the McLaughlins, the Vaneshas, the Keoghs, they were doing it. And they were running plays. They were moving things. They looked like they had jump. And all of a sudden, boom. And it all started really with the Dobby goal with 31 seconds left in the second quarter. But you also start the third quarter with a penalty shot that Curtis Dixon has to take, even though he missed it. But that sets the tone.
Yeah.
Because after that, they rhymed up, 3 goals in a row?
Yeah, 3 in a row. Westberg, Dane Doby, and Digby. Yeah.
6 of the next 7. And then Benesh got one back. And that, set the stage for the fourth quarter, which was a whole lot the same as the third quarter. Where Calgary rhymes off the last 4 goals of the game. In a game that Colorado had and Colorado needed. And boom, Calgary just pulled further and further away.
Yeah, Calgary went up. Colorado went up 12-11 with just over 6 minutes to go. Well, like 6:37 to go, and then you had Dane Doby at 10:35 to tie it. Then Curtis Dixon give him the lead at 12-17. Yeah, to give him the lead at 13-12, but then Dixon and Mitch Wild get empty net goals 17 seconds apart at 14:37 and 14:54. But that last goal...
That goal was kind of weird, but anyways...
Yeah, and that was, that was a shot that went wide and it rolled all the way back into their net.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah. Just when you thought you'd seen it all.
But actually, the way the game went, that was kind of fitting.
Yeah.
For an end. Something very strange happened, and something very strange happened throughout the game. So, so again, it brings us to the question, what do you do with this team? Do you rip it apart?
Well, the ripping apart, you don't know what part of a team are you going to have after the expansion draft and free agency.
You're losing players. Are you going to rip it apart?
If you do, who do you keep? Probably Zach Greer's not going to be protected. So he's probably going to go to San Diego if he's left unprotected. Okay? You're going to keep Ryan Benesh. That's a definite. Okay? You're keeping Dylan Ward. Your goal. You know that. Caputo. Do you keep Caputo? You got Eli McLaughlin, Noble, Stephen Keogh, Carnegie, Brad Self, Justin Rouet. Robert Hope. Wardell. I don't know. If you tear it apart and you trade them, the question is the old saying: for who, for what? That's the whole thing there. And
luckily they have a longer off season to figure it out now, don't they?
Yeah.
Because it ain't working the way it is now.
No, do you?
How did they come into the playoffs?
Yeah.
They lost 4 out of 5, and the one win that they had, well, they gave up 15 goals to a team that had no offense, Toronto. So for a team that's defensive that lost 4 out of 5, and the one they won, they gave up 15 goals. That to me doesn't seem like a very promising playoff run. No, but fair enough.
But do you always blame it on the players or maybe the coach? Maybe the players aren't feeding into the coach's system.
Well, yeah, but you know what? When it comes down to 4 games that look like that, no, I think there's something wrong in there.
Yeah.
I don't think anything's meshing. So it's easy to say it's the coach.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that's because you can't fire 12 players.
12 players, right?
But if 12 players don't mesh together, it doesn't matter what the coach does. He can have the greatest plays known to mankind. He can drop Harlem Globetrotter type plays. It's still not going to work.
No.
Because these guys actually have to get it together.
Right. And
if they can play together, then it's time to figure it out.
Yeah, and the one big thing is nothing against Stephen Fryer, but they need another solid backup. Because in a game like that, you could have taken Dylan Ward out and put the backup in for a little bit, let him regain his composure.
Yeah.
But they left Dylan Ward in the whole entire time.
The thing was that they weren't out of this game. It was 12-12.
No. But I'm talking about when they went on that run.
But they showed no staying power, no fortitude to win this thing.
Yeah.
Total kudos to Calgary because, hell, they had the opportunity, they seized the opportunity, and they kept the opportunity.
Right.
And they're going to the next round.
Yeah. Calgary was outshot 50-46. Out loose balls 73-58. Face-offs were 19-13 in favor of Colorado.
Numbers, Colorado should have walked all over them.
Yeah, power play, Colorado was 2 for 3, and they even scored a shorthanded goal. while Calgary went 1 for 3. So you hear all that, and you would think, oh my God, Colorado made it over that first hump again. No. I mean, they made Christian Del Bianco look like the best goalie around. I mean, he faced 50 shots, stopped 38. Dylan Ward faced 44 and stopped 31. I mean, he faced 6 less shots and let up 1 more goal, and then you had the 2 empty netters. But yeah, I mean, where do you go if you're Colorado? Do you look at, okay, well, we know we have to hand in our list of protected players, and then do you go from there? Do you start looking at who's out there as a free agent, and try to woo them to come, to the Loud House, with them knowing in the back of their mind, saying, "Oh my God, if I sign with Colorado and we have to play Calgary in the first round, I can make my reservations for a cruise or whatever the day after."
Well, we're hoping with new players that they actually won't have to do that then, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's, and the question is, like I said, they're going to have to see what free agents are out there, who's available.
But even as a fan of Colorado, don't you get tired of this?
Oh yeah.
Tired? You must.
I'm tired. I mean, I'm not, one of their fans that go to the game. I'm watching them, and I just know that when it comes to the playoffs, since 2006, they made it past the first round 1 time. And that was last year. And then I looked just to see what their record was. And when I added it up, I looked, I went, wait a minute. They're 0-8 against Calgary. I thought there were more teams involved with this. But they're since 2006, they win it. So from 2007 on to this year, and including this year, they're 0-8 against Calgary, and they didn't make it 1 year. That was in 2010. 0-8 against Calgary in the playoffs, in the first round. Not in the conference final, in the very first round, 0-8. I mean, that's just unbelievable. I mean, they're probably still shaking their heads trying to figure out what the heck is going on. For this to happen. And, like I said, when you look at the numbers, you would think that Colorado won this game.
Well, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. But you would be wrong.
Exactly. Yeah, big time. I mean, and it was mainly 2 main people that did all the damage for Calgary. Dane Dobby, 6 goals, 3 assists. He had the sock trick. Dixon had 4 goals. So there's 10 right there. Digby and Catoni each with a goal apiece. Mitch Wild with
Catoni with 5 assists.
Right, yeah. Catoni had 5 assists. Wes Burke had 5 assists to go with his 2 goals. But I mean, it was mainly Dobby and Dixon that scored 10 out of the 15 goals. I mean, that's 2/3 of their scoring.
Yeah, that's all they needed.
Yeah. I mean, you look at.
They got on track, the game changed.
Yeah.
Which means, again, and I'm an expert on this being in Toronto, where we're the kings of no adjustments at the half. And sure enough, Colorado's been studying our playbook, because when Calgary made all their adjustments, Colorado followed up with no adjustments at the half.
Nope.
And, we proved it all year that if you don't make adjustments and the other team does, you can lose a lot of games. And guess what?
They lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah.
If they wanted to follow the Rock playbook for this year, they did it.
Yeah. And then you look at Colorado scoring, Zach Greer finally gets a hat trick. Noble has 2 goals. Rouet, 2 goals, 3 assists. And Benesh, 2 and 3. But they just didn't make... I mean, not so much making adjustments when you come out for the second half, but even partway through it. I mean, to get outscored 6-2 and 6-3 in the third and fourth quarters, that's absurd.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no reason when you have that big of a lead.
No.
Because we've talked about it many times, of the daunting task of having to score all those goals and keep ahead.
Right. I mean, you're down by 4, and like I always say, that means you got to outscore your opponent 4-0 just to earn the tie, just to get the tie. And we all know in the National Lacrosse League, goals come in rushes here, okay? But you're still going to pay the price trying to score and tie the game up. You're still going to get knocked around. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But, they basically tied it up in the third quarter, 6-2, and, that was it. I mean, you have to do some kind of an adjustment there. And that third quarter tells me that they didn't make any adjustment whatsoever, because that would have been maybe a 6-5 quarter instead of a 6-2, where they would have gotten more goals out of it. And it just seemed to suck the life out of them. It really did. And now Calgary goes on to play Saskatchewan. That game, which was originally supposed to be tonight, was moved last week. It is now on Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So it's 5 o'clock out in Saskatchewan, but it's 7 p.m. Eastern Time on NLL TV. And I don't know if they're making that, if that's going to be one of the Twitter games or not. I'm not sure. I didn't get a chance.
Nothing has been said about it. So
no, Georgia and Rochester is it? Well, no, it looks like they have them both down as games of the week. So I think they're both going to be on Twitter.
Well, it'd be a good thing for them. But
yeah,
we'll see.
Well, according to the website, it shows both of them as the game of the week. So I think they're both going to be on the NLL Twitter account. So
awesome.
Yeah, tune in and look on there. They're both down, but 7 o'clock Eastern Time, Calgary at Saskatchewan. The winner will represent the Western Division in the NLL Champions Cup. And both these teams have been there before, so they both know what's at stake and what has to be done. Now, the other game. Gary, we talked about this in length. New England defeated Rochester every single time they met during the regular season. They owned them in the regular season. And we've all heard it before with every possible sport around. In football or hockey or whatever, mainly in football. If you play the team twice during the regular season, it's hard to beat them in the playoffs. It's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row because they have tape on you. They know what to do, what not to do. New England went against this. They won all 3 in the regular season. Now they're in the playoffs. And we both said that this Rochester team is a different team, a different animal when it comes to the playoffs. And they proved it. The game was in Rochester. And before we even get into it, this was the second game in 3 weeks that Kevin Crowley was held without a goal in Rochester. The one game in the last time they met during the regular season, he had 0 goals. In the playoff game, 0 goals. So they keyed in on Crowley and said, you're going to have everybody else beat us.
And it was a smart game plan.
Yeah, very smart. Well-played game plan, too, by both teams, really, because you only had 3 penalties the whole game. All by New England.
Yeah. Well, Rochester got off to a huge start.
Yep.
Austin Shanks scored 3 of the first 4 goals. Gee, do you think he's going to be protected? But right away, they're taking it to him, and by the halftime, it's 11-4 for Rochester. Again, going on a 6-goal run to end the second quarter.
Yep.
And all the people who were supposed to score, scoring. The Fennells, the Jacksons, Reseteras, Federelli, Hossick, Shanks again. Shanks had a game of his life.
Yeah, big time game.
For a rookie and in the playoffs, and he looks like a natural. Now, I got to give it to New England. They could have easily folded up their tent and say, "Well, it's not here this year. See you later." But they came out from the third quarter to start the third quarter, and they came out on fire.
Yeah.
And they got the next 4, and all of a sudden we have ourselves a game. all of a sudden it's 11-8. Caleb Crawford, Stephon LeBlanc, the ones who made all the news all year long, wondering if these trades were any good. Riley O'Connor, Caleb Crawford again. But just as it looked like they were going in, Joe Resetarits has the timing of timings, because just to stifle it all and to put that distance again, make it 12-8, Joe Resetarits scores at 10-10. Now, Adam Bombery comes in, scores for New England. Stephon LeBlanc starts the fourth with a short-handed goal. And again, we're pretty tight.
Yeah.
But again, Rochester has that extra gear. Brad Gilly scored a beautiful goal. Corey Vitarelli after that. And by this point, it's said and done. New England got one more goal at 8:22. Now, think about it. When they scored that goal, it was now 14-11. There was still basically just under half a quarter to go. And they were held scoreless the rest of the way.
Yep.
Now that says something about both Rochester's defense and Rochester's goaltending, which I'll get to when we start discussing this week's picks. Then when they switched goals, then the last goal of the game was an empty net goal by Brad Gillies again. And that was all she wrote at 15-11 Rochester. You look at the shots on goal, it was even, 60-60. Loose balls, 88-84, pretty close. Face-offs, 15-15. New England found a way to actually neutralize Jake Withers. First team this year that I've seen do that.
Yeah.
But that was all for naught, because they couldn't neutralize the defense that Rochester threw up and Matt Vince.
It wasn't so much that.
And Matt Vince in the regular season, two different Matt Vinces.
Yep.
Rochester's defense in the playoffs and Rochester's defense during the league play, two different defenses. Rochester's offense that had been going all through the second half certainly honed itself in time for the playoffs. And when you get an extra added bonus of Austin Shanks, who I did see play before he got drafted and knew he was going to be something because he played really well in MSL last summer.
Yeah.
But it took him a few games, maybe half the year to get his feet planted, himself acclimated.
He's rooted now.
At that point on, that's when the Rochester losing streak ended, and the new star was born.
Yeah.
Now, let's also not forget Kyle Jackson, who was the up-and-comer from last year. He's still around.
Yeah.
And at any given time, he can pull off just what the same thing that Austin Shanks has pulled off. Let's also not forget Jammer, Cody Jamieson, who really didn't have a whole lot to do with anything, right?
No, he only had 2 assists, that's it.
Didn't have much to do with this. Imagine if he fired up in this thing too. Well, we have this week to see that.
Well, it seems like the defense on New England focused.
They keyed on Jamieson.
Right, they keyed on him.
But there were enough weapons out there, which they should have known because me sitting at home know this.
Right.
That there's plenty of weapons that you're not going to be able to stop. Okay, so you stop Jammer. Okay. Well, who's got Vitarelli? Right. You got him? Okay, who's got Fennell? Okay, you got him? Who's got Shanks? You got him? Who's got Jackson? Oh, okay, you got him? And it goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
Let's forget someone who we don't talk about much, Brad Gillies.
Right.
With 3 goals.
Well,
they can get them anywhere.
Well, here's the thing. Out of their 15 goals, or we'll say 14, we won't count, well, the empty netter was included with it. 6 of their goals came on transition.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big part of it right there. Matt Vince, a couple of those where he picked up, how many assists did he get? He had 2 assists.
2 assists.
Yeah. Both of those passes were on point from him.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they caught the runner in stride. I think 2 of them were Gillies. One was the empty net, and another one was at one point during the game. Just hit him.
Don't forget that Vince plays field and he plays positional, not
right.
goalie, when he plays field across in the summer for MLL.
Right. So he knows.
He had a couple of years for the Toronto National. So, yeah, the man can play.
Yeah. And
don't fool yourself.
No, don't let him fool you at all. And he hit him perfect, right in stride. I mean, and now they get a chance. This is their first time back in the playoffs since 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And 2015 is when...
That would be the three-peat.
Well, no, 2014 they three-peated.
Right, 2015 they were eliminated, were they?
Yeah, they were eliminated, and I think it was the first round they got eliminated.
That was against the Rock. That was when we first had That 10-minute mini game.
Yes.
That's right. I remember that game well.
Yeah. So this is their first time.
First time I've seen that many goals scored in a 10-minute mini game.
Minigame, yes. This is their first chance going back to where if they beat Georgia, who they have beaten twice out of three times this year, okay, they're 1-1 in Georgia. Okay, one of the games I think was a 3-goal game, 14-11, and then the other one was a 7-goal game that they won there. And then they won. Yeah, they lost a close game in Georgia. They beat them 17-10 in Georgia, and then they won in overtime in Rochester to win the season series. So then again, this is the playoffs. So who knows what's going to happen? But the interesting thing here, though, is Gary, whoever wins out of Rochester and Georgia, most likely will face Saskatchewan. Okay? And we'll get more into this next week should that happen, because Rochester beat Saskatchewan twice during the regular season. Okay? And they also beat them in the Champions Cup back in 2012. And Rochester also beat 2012. 2013 or no, 2014 was when they beat Calgary, when they three-peated. So the teams that are in it had the taste of the Champions Cup. They have all won it. Georgia was in it last year and they won it. Saskatchewan won it 2 years in a row prior. And then before that, Rochester won it 3 times in a row. So you got a lot going on there. But in this game here, Rochester did what they had to do. New England said, look, we're going to keel and jammer. You're going to have the other guys defeat us. And that's what happened. And when you go down the chart, Austin Shanks, 4 goals. We mentioned about that. Joe Vitaris, 2 goals, 4 assists. Jake Withers went 15 for 30 on the faceoff, 10 loose balls, 2 assists. Corey Vitarelli, 2 and 2. Josh Currier with 2 assists. Luke Magnan, 2 assists. Kyle Jackson, a quiet night for him, 2 goals and 1 assist with 12 shots. And Eric Fennell with a goal. So you see, like, the main components, which were Jamison and Jackson, only had 2 goals and 3 assists between the two of them. But the other players, all came out. I mean, Gillies, 3, Shanks, 4, Restars, 2, Vitarelli, 2. There's 11 goals right there. So the other players did what they had to do. And when you look at on the New England side, Riley O'Connor with 3, Adam Bomberry with 1, Stefan LeBlanc with 3, Kyle Buchanan with just 1, and Caleb Crawford with 3. And I said this last week. They're going to key on Crowley, and that's what they did. They held him to 4 assists again. And then you're relying on your captain, Kyle Buchanan, to get a bunch of goals. And he's not going to do that every single time. He's not going to be able to get 4 goals game in, game out. He had a single goal. That was it.
It's been more of the MO for during the year anyways.
Right. And that's why they keyed on Crowley. And they let LeBlanc and Crawford have to be the ones to try to do it. And both of them ended up with hat tricks. But it still wasn't enough.
Well, to show you that New England is grasping at straws, one of their draft picks from this past draft, Nick Tchaikovsky, they gave him a shot near the end of the season when things were looking like they were lost. And they had him in the lineup here. So is that the depth of New England right now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see anybody else that they could have put out there. I don't know what happened to Kevin Buchanan.
Yeah, no, I didn't hear anything about him either.
He's been out of the picture for almost this whole second half of the season.
Yeah.
There's nothing on the transaction wire. So I don't know. But
we also didn't have Anthony Joachim in the lineup either. They scratched him. So I don't know.
I mean, that's another team right now that you got to look at where, they're going to lose some players. Okay, we all know that Kevin Crowley is a free agent, so they haven't signed him yet, which kind of almost tells me that, hey, they're going to let him test the free agent market. So I won't be surprised, that Philly goes after him. As far as goaltending wise, I don't know what they're going to do with Aaron Bold. Okay, because this was supposed to be the year coming up that Jameson would take over. So it looks like if they keep Bold for one more year to see if Edmonton comes back into the picture, and then, hey, he's going to be, unprotected.
Funny thing is, I saw more potential out of Jameson last year than I did this year.
Yeah.
Like, we can look at the Minto Cup and how he played there, and it was wonderful and whatever, but he had a defense that made Saskatchewan's look weak. So really the shots that he had were, outside, because Six Nations played a crazy zone defense that just absolutely put guys past the restraining lines. So this time around when Doug Jameson came into camp, I thought, okay, great, let's see what he has. And you know what? He's been underwhelming for the times he's come in. It was supposed to be a stop the bleeding kind of thing, kind of like an Angus Goodley for Rochester.
Right.
A couple of times when Matt Vince was pulled, he stole the game, and still they wound up with a W.
Yeah.
I don't see that with Jameson.
No, I don't either, and that's unfortunate because they were really high on him.
So was I, and I'm not now.
Yeah, so I don't know what they're going to do. As far as they only signed Bold to a 1-year deal. So, do they?
And he'd obviously want to be closer to anywhere that is closer to an airport, because this 8-hour travel thing has got to be wearing on him.
Right. I mean, if he here's the thing. I mean, he could probably fly from Edmonton to Philly straight run.
Yeah.
So my whole thing is if
San Diego too pretty easily, huh?
Yeah, because mainly I think it'll be San Fran because that's one of their internationals right there.
Sure, it's only a 3-hour flight, so that wouldn't matter.
Yeah, so it could go either way there, So it's going to be interesting. As far as what free agents are left out there, to talk to other teams, and that starts on July 1st, where they can start talking to other teams. That includes Philly and San Diego. So on July 1st, they could start talking. But midway through July, just before that, you have the expansion draft that'll come up. So kind of curious to see who's going to be protected, who's not going to be protected. So we'll have to wait and see, so to speak.
Sure.
And the scenery around the NLL is going to change because each team can lose 2 players, and then, like I said, you have the free agent market that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to see. So now Rochester will now travel and face the Georgia Swarm.
And if they bring family members, they'll outnumber the Swarm family.
Yes. And that game is at 7:05 on Saturday. So you got a 7 o'clock game Eastern on Saturday, Rochester at Georgia, and 7 o'clock Eastern, Calgary at Saskatchewan. The winner of those 2 games will face each other in the best of 3 Champions Cup series. Now, deep down, I'm rooting, obviously, for Rochester for one main reason. Rochester wins, it means I go to Rochester to cover the Champions Cup.
Why?
For Game 2, okay?
So do I.
Which we hope at that point, Game 2 is the deciding game.
Yeah.
So it's going to depend on, well, really, we're saying Game 2 because we're assuming, and I hate to use that word, that Saskatchewan's going to beat Calgary. So let's do that game first, okay?
Right?
It's obvious if Saskatchewan wins, they have home floor. They will have games 1 and 3. If Calgary wins, then either Georgia or Rochester will have home floor. So that's where we'll have to see what happens there. But Saskatchewan at Calgary at Saskatchewan, I almost want to say that it's not really going to be a contest, but
can't say that now.
No, you can't, because Calgary has been playing hot. There's, the way they're playing lately is just unbelievable. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, this is, obviously, Saskatchewan's rested. They're able to, get the bumps and bruises, taken care of, and you're going to have Evan Kirk, there. But the way they've played over the last so many games have just been.
Simply put, the way if anything short of a championship for Saskatchewan makes the year a failure.
Yeah.
Because they haven't forgotten about last year. In all aspects of the game, if the rush is on, they're dominant. Have a packed house and have a chip on their shoulder, and that should push the rush to victory. Calgary has been playing well. But even in the last game against Colorado, if a team played 4 quarters against them, they're watching this game. So I'm not convinced. And I don't put Colorado with Saskatchewan on that realm. So if you want to go the next rung up and think that Saskatchewan's going to have that collapse at home in the playoffs after they lost last year in the finals, I don't get it. I don't buy it. I think Saskatchewan wins this one by a couple.
Yeah, now the thing that I'm looking at here, I'm looking at the schedule when they played each other. Okay, I see the first meeting.
Saskatchewan won all 3 games.
Yeah, but when you look at the scores, you're looking at 13-12 in favor of the Rush. Then you go a little further down, and where was the second game at?
Well, the last game was 11-10, right?
Yeah, that was 11-10. They played each other 3 times. Oh, 10-6. Here we go.
Yeah, but you also got to
wait. No,
January the 11th. Saskatchewan clinched first place, right?
Right, yeah. Calgary won that game 10-6.
Okay.
Yeah, Calgary won one game 10-6.
Basically, January the 11th, Saskatchewan clinched first. So they haven't gone full bore on any of these things.
Yeah, I mean,
the first games of the season, when we saw what Saskatchewan could do, they're scary good. And believe me, Keenan will make sure that these guys are scary good.
Yeah, and in my sense, he's going to have to, because you looked at their last couple games, 16-9 over Buffalo, the 26-11 rout of the Stealth, and then they lose 11-10 to the Rush, which meant nothing that game at all.
Mm-hmm.
But they were in it. Now we could sit here and we could argue saying, well, the Rush weren't going to go full bore, and they weren't trying to hurt themselves or whatever, just kind of going through the motions, which I kind of agree with. But that might have give Calgary maybe a little motivation there. Now, are they going to win this game? No, I don't think they are, unless they neutralize
everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, because that team is Saskatchewan is fully loaded. From Mark Matthews.
Additionally, they're loaded too. So, where are you going to get it from? You're not going to stop them.
No. I think what they have to do is they have to slow the game down.
The biggest thing for Saskatchewan all year is staying focused.
Mm-hmm.
Most of their losses, they'd already jumped out to a big lead and blew it because they lost focus. They dipsy-doodled enough that they actually had the game taken from them. If they can stay focused again and keep, not getting bored. They're a dominant team. Probably one of the best the league's seen in many, many years. You're almost looking at dynasty-type team.
Yeah.
And, I'll go on a limb and say, yeah, it is a dynasty team. Because they're just that good. But their one downfall is that they have a tendency to lose interest. And they sure as heck better not do it in the playoffs, or they'll be watching the finals from home not very happy.
No. And then you hit it right on the head. They need to keep focus. They were off for last week, and you could almost say the prior weeks, because they clinched the number one seed early. Okay, early on they clinched it. With maybe about 4 games to go, it was already clinched. So they need to jump out quick and stay that way the whole time, and not lose any type of focus. They can't even lose focus in the beginning, because this Calgary team is scary.
Oh yeah, if you let them get confidence, they do have the ability to run away with the game.
Yes.
Don't fool yourself on that one. My prediction comes strictly from that their defense will be awake for the whole game.
Yeah, and you're going to see Evan Kirk making save after save. That defense, if you're going to break through that defense, you're going to pay the price. You really are. And Calgary's got to watch the transition game of Saskatchewan. Evan Kirk has been on point with some of his passes. So, it's...
One thing that I noticed when I watched Colorado and Saskatchewan when I was out there, and it took Colorado most of the game to figure it out, was shooting on Evan Kirk low seemed to net them a lot of goals.
Yeah.
Now, if they've watched their tape and start shooting low, we might have a different kind of thing going on.
Yeah, and Dixon and Dobby like to kind of shoot low. They fire those little rug burners. And somehow they find their way through everybody's legs and get into the back of the net. So,
that being said, there are all these little factors. I don't believe that Calgary's going to win, but
no.
There are these little factors that wouldn't surprise me if this so-called upset would happen.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't surprise me either. But also, Christian Del Bianco is going to have the game of his life.
Oh, he's going to be bombarded.
Yes.
He will figure he's in WW2.
Yeah. So what the Calgary defense has to do is not only just push Saskatchewan to the outside, okay, and take shots from the outside, but they have to stay on their hands. They cannot allow any of the shooters from Saskatchewan to get their arms or hands free. Because if they do, Gary, we both know it, that you get your arms and your hands free in the game of lacrosse, you can, it's not going to be a straight shot. That ball dipsy-do all over the place.
Yeah.
So you can't let the players get that full extension and get that velocity on the ball, or being able to turn their hands over top of each other to put a little dip into it, or what have you. Go high to low, low to high, whatever. So it's going to be a lot on the Calgary defense, and it's going to be where if you can't push them to the outside and stay on their hands or hit the stick before they take the shot or what have you, let Del Bianco see the ball completely. Don't fall into that screen. Saskatchewan likes to roll off picks and set up that little bit of a screen where all you see is the head of the stick come out from somebody's hip, and then the ball goes by you. So if Calgary has to do anything, they need to let Del Bianco see 100% of that shot. He needs to see it clearly. Defense, like I said, push them to the outside. Don't let them get their arms free. Don't take any stupid penalties. Slow the game down. Saskatchewan wants a fast-paced game because they want to be able to score, quickly. Okay, so slow the pace down. Slow it to your type of game. That's what you have to do to win the game, or to at least stay in it. Okay, to stay in it, to have that shot. That's what they need to do. Saskatchewan, you pinpointed it perfectly, Gary. They can't get into that lull of losing focus. If they play their game, even if they play a slow-paced game, if they keep their focus, they're going to win this game. And they go back to the Champions Cup.
And as long as they keep being reminded of that, I think they keep their focus. So
yeah, and I'm with you on this one. Yeah, we're both going to pick the Rush, but it wouldn't surprise me one bit if Calgary pulls an upset. They're very capable of doing it. This isn't like Saskatchewan playing Vancouver. Okay,
right.
They're playing Calgary, and Calgary has been on fire as of late. Okay, they won 3 of their last 4 prior to playing the Rush in the last game of the year. Okay, 26-11 against the Stealth, 16-9 against Buffalo. They lost to the Black Wolves 13-12, but then they beat the Stealth prior to that 13-9. So I mean, they were winning games here. Even though they didn't have to because everything was already figured out at that point. It was their way of getting the rest of the rust off of them, getting everything polished up, mixing up the lines. Let's see how this works together. Let's see who works good here, and getting all different kind of formations going. So who knows? I'm pretty sure Saskatchewan's going to see a totally different Calgary team as far as their sets and everything. But we'll have to see. And that game again is on Sunday, 7:00 Eastern. Calgary at Saskatchewan. And obviously, we're going Saskatchewan.
Yep.
So, I mean, and then the winners of those 2 games, we're talking now, we'll go to the Rochester game. Rochester's playing Georgia. They beat them twice. It's going to be. They need to control the Thompsons. That's what they need to do. There's no 2 ways about it. Both Thompsons have been on fire lately.
Yep. And so is Shane Jackson, and so is Jesse King, and so is
Jordan Hall.
On and on. Tom Matisse, Jason Noble, even as a transition player.
Yeah. Jordan Hall as well. Jordan Hall's been on his game. Mike Poulin's been on his game. This is going to be a classic matchup. It really is. Again, you have, Rochester won the season series 2-1. The last 2 out of the 3 games were close. 1 game Rochester won in Georgia was a 17-10 game. The one they lost was only by a few goals. So it's this is going to be another one of those games. If you can control the Thompsons, especially Lyle Thompson, Rochester could escape with with the victory. I mean, you look at the goaltending, and you got Matt Vince, 4 or 5-time goaltender of the year. Mike Poulin, who's been in a number of Champions Cups. Obviously winning it last year. Before that, he faced Rochester in 2014 when he was with Calgary. So obviously he's probably looking for a little revenge in a way. We'll say. But they need. I don't know. This game can go either way. It really can. Could you look?
Me personally, I like Rochester in this one, and the reason being is yes, Georgia has played well, but yes, they've also been inconsistent throughout. They really haven't made a statement saying this is what we are, this is who we are, and anytime they come close to it, the next week is a dog. So I'm not 100% convinced on that. Also, Rochester in the second half has been dominant. They've got a strong defense, their goaltending we've talked about, and the balanced attack on offense should be able to throw the Swarm into fits. And we've already talked about that. The pleasant surprise being Austin Shanks. To add to the Joe Russiteris, the Cody Jamesons, the Kyle Jacksons, etc., etc., etc. So I just see that the more talented team is Rochester in this one. And though I don't think it's going to be a wide margin, I think it's going to be a very close game. I give the slight edge to Rochester.
The slight edge, yeah. 'Cause I'm looking at some of the game recaps here of when they played in the game that Rochester won in Georgia, 17-10. Because they split in Georgia. They lost 14-11 back on December 30th, and that was in part to a 7-2 second quarter by Georgia, where they went up 8-6. Because Rochester was up 4-1 at that going into the second quarter back in December, and then Georgia just put up a 7 spot, and they end up winning it by 3. And then you come to the 17-10 game, and Rochester goes up 2-0. Then they outscore them 5-4 in the second, and 3-2 in the third. But the fourth quarter, Rochester put up a 7 spot. Outscored them 7-4. That put the game, 17-10 right there. And then you had them face each other March 10th, and that game went to overtime. And again, Rochester puts up a 5 spot in the second, outscores them 5-2, and Georgia had to outscore them 4-1 in the last quarter to put it to overtime. So I mean, they've had Georgia on the ropes in every single game.
Now, also, we could talk about Georgia having the guys come back, but 2 of those 3 games, they had the guys back.
Right.
And both of those games were wins for Rochester.
Yes.
So there's your key. Remember, I was in the Philippines when there was a 17-10 game, and I remember watching it.
Yeah.
On a Sunday morning.
Yeah, so 17-10, so that's 28-24. So they outscored them 39-34 in the games, in the 3 games. And the one big one that I'm looking at is the 17-10 game. That was in Georgia.
Yep.
So that's
that was just after everybody came back, and that was just after they surprised the Rock in overtime with everybody back in.
Right.
So everybody was high on the Georgia Swarm at that point, and Rochester came in and put an exclamation point on that. Bang. And that was where Rochester's season turned.
Yeah, because at that point, Rochester has lost 1, 2, 3, 4. They've lost 6 in a row before winning that 17-10 game. Okay.
And from that point on, Rochester turned that second half into a stellar season. Yeah,
because they after that they went ahead and they beat Saskatchewan 16-11. And then they played Georgia again. That was the 11-10 overtime game after they beat Buffalo 17-10. So they, were right there. And that Georgia, that 17-10 game, that was their 3rd game in 8 days.
Yep.
And 2 of them were on the road. No, 2 of them were at home, I'm sorry. Where they lost to Buffalo 16-14, and then they lost to Toronto 12-9 on the 10th. And then they had to, jump on a flight, and wasn't that February? Wasn't that the travel problem game they had against Georgia?
No, I don't believe that was the one.
It was the one in December?
Yes, no, that is the one. You're right. That is the one.
Yeah. And they still ended up winning that game 17-10.
That's right. They had a penalty to start the game because delay a game.
Yeah.
They had to delay the game for them to get there.
Yep,
you're right.
Yeah, because they were rerouted from all over the place, from Toronto to here. How many flights were canceled, and they had 2 different charter planes to bring the players in, and they didn't get a chance to shoot around or anything. And they still ended up winning that game 17-10 in Georgia. So yeah, I think Rochester is winning this game. They will go on and represent the Eastern Division, Eastern Conference, however you want to call it. It's called the Eastern Division, in the 2017-18 Best of 3 Champions Cup. Now, personally, I'd like to see them, go up against. I would like to see them have home floor. So it'd be nice, to be there for games 1 and possibly 3. But having game, if you have Saskatchewan has home floor and you have game 2 at home, if you could steal game 1, you imagine the excitement that there would be?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're obviously jumping the gun here, but That's what you have to, you really look at. If whoever wins out of Rochester and Georgia, the only way they're going to have home floor is if Calgary defeats Saskatchewan. That would be the only way. If not, Saskatchewan will have home floor should they beat the Calgary Roughnecks, which Gary and I are both saying that they're going to do. So you're going Saskatchewan over Calgary. Did we both say it was going to be a close game, or like a 2-3 goal game? We think.
I figure it's going to be a couple of goal games.
Yeah, and Del Bianco could steal the game. Calgary could upset them, but as long as the Rush stay focused, they should come up with a victory here. Rochester and Georgia. Georgia really hasn't shown me anything when they've played Rochester this year. The one game, they beat them 14-11, but once they got everybody back, it's been Rochester against them, and they beat them 17-10 after all that travel debacle that they had, and then they beat them in overtime, and Georgia hasn't been as consistent. They won the last 2 games of the regular season to get first place, and the big question I'm going to have is how consistent is Miles Thompson going to be? The last few games, yes, he's been scoring 2-3 goals, but we also know there have been times that he has gone scoreless. He hasn't gotten any goals. So what if you got a key on one Thompson, you got a key on Lyle. I would think if you're Rochester. Now Ian Lord will probably be back in the lineup. If I was Kurt Stiers, I'd pull him to the side right now and tell him, keep it cool. If you can't tell us, we'll stitch your mouth shut. Because you can't afford... I've watched him play here in Philly when the Philadelphia Wings drafted him. And he's a good, solid defensive player. Just sometimes he just goes too far over the edge. He gets into little shouting matches here and there, and that leads to an extra push or a shove, and there's that extra penalty that's thrown in there, or a penalty just in general. If he just plays a hard game, I could see him guarding Lyle Thompson the whole night and being Thompson's worst nightmare. And even Scott Campbell would be another matchup. So Georgia's going to have their hands full. But we're both going Rochester over Georgia and Saskatchewan over Calgary, which would be a repeat matchup from 2012 in the Champions Cup. So it should be quite interesting, Gary. And I think any time now, I think between now and the end of the month, and it wouldn't surprise me if they do it during the Champions Cup, during the final, they're going to have the coin flip for the expansion draft. Because I was told mid to late May to early June would be when the coin flip is going to happen. And as we said before, the winner of the coin flip decides, do they want to pick first in the expansion draft or in the NLL entry draft in September. You will not pick first in both. You get your choice, one or the other. So if you pick first in one, you pick second in the other. And that's how they're going to do it. There's going to be a number of combines around this year. I believe the first one's in Dallas. There will be one at the Wings practice facility in September. I think San Diego has the second combine. They're in there. Dallas is in there. Dallas, San Diego, Philly. Well, it's in Jersey, but it's for the Philadelphia Wings. Toronto's the last one. And there's another one before that. And I can't remember where that one is. There's 5 locations. But Toronto's last. Philadelphia is before Toronto. And And I know Dallas is first, San Diego is second. I cannot remember who the third city is, but there will be five combines. So look on NLL.com. It should have it on there as far as the combines. I'm going to try to look for it right now as far as where the combines are going to be. But I don't know how far.
Yeah.
How far down it's in the news thing. I know it was somewhere around week 19. There's a jersey auction and yeah, I can't.
Anyways.
Yeah, it's a playoff schedule scenario.
I'm sure we'll find out soon enough.
I do know that, like I said, there is 5 of them, and it's just a matter of where is it actually going to be at for. Here it is. Here we go. Combine schedule. Okay. July 8th, the NYTEX Sports Center in Dallas. July 8th is the first one. Valley View Casino Center in San Diego, August 11th. Langley, that's the one. Langley, British Columbia on September 8th. Then the Flyer Skate Zone for the Philadelphia Wings in Voorhees, New Jersey, September 9th. And then over at the track, the Toronto Athletic Center in Oakville on September 15th. Then 2 days later will be the draft. There are the 5 places. So if you're in any of those, get on out there and check out some of the talent. I'm pretty sure you're going to see a lot going on. Gary, one big thing before we wrap it up. Favorite player, Corey Small. You see where he went to, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
He went to Peterborough. Paul Day picked him up. It's got Philly fans talking.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens, because we all know he wants to go east. So I have to see if Vancouver protects him or if they're going to try to trade him. But yeah, I mean, I know Toronto would like to have him and Philly would like to have him too. So we'll have to see what happens. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be another week down. This time next week, we'll be talking about Game 1 because Champions Cup is best of 3. We get to see
our best way to make travel plans.
Yes, we get to see who's going to play where, what we're going to do. Rochester wins, and it's like, okay, are we going to Rochester next weekend, or are we going to be in Rochester the weekend after that? We'll have to see what happens. Have to see when they decide to play them, too. Hopefully they won't be on a Friday night.
Yeah, exactly.
So this week, Rochester at Georgia, 7 o'clock, I believe I said it was.
Both games are 7 o'clock Eastern.
7 o'clock Eastern. Both look like they're going to be on Twitter because they're down.
They are both on Twitter. They're both games of the week.
Both games of the week on Twitter. 7:05 Rochester at Georgia on the Twitter, NLL Twitter account, and also NLL TV. And then Sunday at 7 o'clock Eastern, Calgary at Saskatchewan. The winners face off in the Champions Cup. So, for Gary Group at laxphilly.com, I'm Rocco Granato in lacrossewetrust.com. We'll see everybody here again next week to talk about Champions Cup final. Take care, everybody.